I met her in 2007. Back then, she was the kind of woman who could light up a room with just her smile. I was an Army veteran, a man who had jumped out of planes, crawled through mud, and stared down rifle scopes at targets miles away. But despite all that, I was still just a man hopelessly drawn to her laughter, her warmth, and the way she made me feel like, for once, I didn't have to be a soldier. I could just be me. We married in 2009. I thought it was the happiest day of my life. The kind of day you replay in your head when you need a reminder that love is real. 2 years later, in 2010, our daughter Kaylee was born. And that's when life changed, not just for me, not just for her, but for all of us. Kaylee didn't come into this world easily. My wife's pregnancy was complicated. Toward the end, she developed pre-gestational diabetes, and her blood pressure skyrocketed. When she finally went into labor, she was 2 weeks early. What followed was a nightmare: 3 long days of labor. Doctors rushing in and out, monitors beeping, my wife screaming in exhaustion and pain. And then Kaylee was born. But she wasn't ready for the world. She was tiny, fragile, her skin tinted yellow from jaundice. I'll never forget the first time I held her, so small that my hand wrapped around hers like I was holding a bird's wing. I stood there helplessly as doctors slid a tube into her nose for feeding. My heart broke, but I didn't cry. Not then. I had to be strong for her, for my wife. Kaylee had to stay in the special care unit for 3 weeks. My wife was allowed to stay with her in one of the special mother's rooms, but I still had to keep working. My routine became brutal. I'd wake at 5 a.m., rush to the hospital for Kaylee's 6 a.m. feeding, then head straight to work by 8 at lunch. I'd drive back to the hospital, sit by my wife's side, hold my baby's hand, whisper promises to her that she'd make it. At 1:30, I was back at work. By 5 p.m., I was done for the day, but my work wasn't finished. I'd drive home, wash my wife's clothes, cook her dinner, pack her food, then drive back to the hospital. By 6:30, I'd stay until 10 p.m. before heading home, only to do it all again the next day. That was my life. For weeks, draining, exhausting, but I never once resented it, because this was my family. This was love. But my wife wasn't okay. After Kaylee's birth, she slipped into postpartum depression. I could see it in her eyes. The emptiness, the heavy silence that followed us into every room. She wasn't herself, and nothing I did seemed to pull her out of it. I tried. God knows I tried. I took 2 weeks off work just to be home with her, to shoulder the night feedings so she could rest. I'd sneak home from work during lunch breaks to clean the house, make her food, try to bring some kind of light into her world. Slowly, she started getting better, or so I thought. When Kaylee was 2 years old, tragedy struck again. My wife's mother had a heart attack. She almost died. And just like that, my wife collapsed into a deeper depression, worse than before. It was like watching someone drown and realizing you couldn't swim fast enough to save them, no matter what. I did flower support, nights staying up. Just talking it wasn't enough, so I made what I thought was the right call. I asked her if she wanted to move closer to her family. That way, you'll have them nearby, I told her. Her face lit up. For the first time in months, she smiled. She said, yes. And I thought, good. Finally, something that will help her. I didn't realize then it was the worst decision of my life. We packed up everything, left behind my family, my job, my friends, and moved 500 miles away. I thought we were chasing healing, but in truth, we were running straight into the arms of betrayal. At first, I tried to embrace it. I bought us a house, settled us in. I told myself this was the fresh start she needed. But her family was poison. I saw it almost immediately. They didn't treat her like their daughter. They treated her like a punching bag. Her mother, father, brother, they'd insult her constantly. Little jabs at her weight, cruel remarks about her looks, mocking her ideas, belittling her opinions. And my wife, instead of fighting back, just absorbed it, like she believed she deserved it. I couldn't stand it. To me, an insult toward her was an insult toward me. So I spoke up. I defended her. Every single time. I'd call them out, raise my voice, fight for her dignity. But do you know what happened? She turned on me. Every single time she defended them, And suddenly, I was the outsider, the enemy. After 6 months of this, I snapped on the drive home one night. After yet another screaming match with her family, I told her, flat out, I'm done. I'm not going back to their house. Not anymore. She didn't argue, not then. But the distance between us started to grow. Without me at her side to protect her, she sunk into depression again. And I was lost. I didn't know how to help her anymore. I was fighting ghosts I couldn't touch. That's when I made my second biggest mistake. One night, I suggested she go out with her old friends. Just reconnect, I told her. Get out of the house. Have some fun. I thought it would help her breathe again. But those nights out, they became regular. Fridays, Saturdays. And the nights usually started at her parents' house. What I didn't know was that her own mother, was inviting my wife's ex-boyfriends over. I had no idea. Meanwhile, our intimacy at home was fading. Before marriage, we were insatiable 2-3 times a day. After the wedding, it became once every couple days. After Kaylee's birth, maybe once a week. By the time she started going out again, it was practically non-existent. And then came the day she left me. That morning, she woke me up the way she hadn't in months. She climbed into bed, touched me, kissed me, and for a few fleeting minutes, it felt like old times. Like maybe, just maybe, we'd find our way back to each other. She made love to me like she meant it, like she wanted me. And then, that same afternoon, she told me she was leaving. It was like someone drove a stake through my chest. I couldn't process it. My ears were ringing, my vision blurred. What do you mean, you're leaving? I asked her, my voice cracking, but she was firm. Colder than I'd ever seen her. In the days that followed, I begged, I pleaded, I bargained. I told her we could fix it, that we just needed time, that Kaylee needed us. But the more I tried, the more she pulled away. And then one day, she was just gone. The house was silent. Kaylee's toys were scattered across the floor, her little shoes by the door. But the woman I'd built my life with had vanished. I curled up in the corner of our darkened living room, blinds drawn, the silence pressing down on me. I couldn't eat. Every time I tried, I threw up. I couldn't sleep. All I could do was sit there, shattered, and wonder, how did it come to this? And that was only the beginning of the storm. I tried so hard to convince myself that maybe I was just overthinking. Maybe my wife only needed some space. Maybe she was going through a phase. But deep inside, my heart kept whispering that something was terribly wrong. Her late-night outings, the excuses about friends' gatherings, the phone that was always locked, it all kept scratching at my soul. One evening, I finally gathered the courage to check her phone. My hands trembled. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst through my chest. Somehow, I guessed her password. And as soon as the gallery opened, my entire world collapsed. There, they were videos that made my blood freeze and my breath stop. My wife, the woman I had loved for 20 years, was with another man. Hotel rooms, laughter, intimacy, all the things she had denied me for 2 decades. She was doing so effortlessly with someone else. At that moment, a flood of memories hit me. All those nights, when I had asked her to try something new, to be closer, and she had always refused. She would tell me she wasn't into those things, that it wasn't her nature. And now, watching her in those videos, doing exactly what she had refused me, broke me in ways I cannot explain. It felt like my soul had been ripped apart. I shut the phone, but nothing could shut off the images that were now burned into my mind. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my chest heavy with betrayal. The next morning, she woke up as if nothing had happened. She made breakfast, sent our daughter to school, smiled like life was normal. I sat there, watching her, wondering how a human being could live with 2 faces. The following nights were no different. She went out often, claiming it was just with friends. But when she returned, her eyes no longer held love for me, only indifference and irritation. Every word from her mouth was laced with contempt. I wanted to confront her. God knows I wanted to throw the truth in her face, scream at her, demand why she had done this to me. But I was too broken, too paralyzed by the betrayal. Instead, I chose to collect evidence, to keep the truth with me for when the time would come. One night, as she was getting ready to go out again, I finally tried to talk. I told her she was destroying our family, that our daughter deserved better. She looked me in the eyes, cold and detached, and said words that carved themselves into my heart forever. I can't live in this fake marriage anymore. I want freedom. You live your life, I'll live mine. That was it. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of sacrifice, of love, of patience gone in one sentence. That night, she packed some of her things and left. She didn't look back. When our daughter asked me, "Papa, why did Mama leave?" I had no answer. That innocent face, looking for reassurance, broke me even more. My wife's betrayal hadn't just destroyed MIT, had stolen my daughter's childhood too. The weeks that followed were hell. I couldn't focus at work. I couldn't eat. I couldn't breathe without feeling her betrayal pressing down on my chest. Every corner of the house reminded me of her. Every laugh of my daughter reminded me of the family we had lost. One night, unable to bear it anymore, I tried to end my life. I swallowed poison, believing death was the only escape from the torment. But fate had other plans. I was rushed to the hospital, and I survived. As I lay on that hospital bed, the doctor told me, "You touched death, but you're still alive. Maybe life still has a purpose for you." His words echoed in my head. I realized that in my selfish pain, I had almost left my daughter an orphan. I had almost abandoned the only person who still needed me. That night, I made a decision. I would live not for myself, but for her. I would rise again, no matter how broken I was, because my daughter deserved a father who fought, not one who gave up. The opportunity came when I received a job offer abroad. It was a big decision, leaving behind my city, my home, and every piece of my past. But maybe that was exactly what I needed, a clean slate, far from the shadows of betrayal. On the plane, I looked out at the shrinking lights of my hometown. My heart ached with loss, burned with anger. But somewhere in the middle of all that pain was a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could build a new life from the ashes of the old one. That chapter of my life had ended. Ahead of me was a new journey, one where my true revenge, not through violence but through success, was waiting to be written. The following nights were no different. She went out often, claiming it was just with friends. But when she returned, her eyes no longer held love for me, only indifference and irritation. Every word from her mouth was laced with contempt. I wanted to confront her. God knows I wanted to throw the truth in her face, scream at her, demand why she had done this to me. But I was too broken, too paralyzed by the betrayal. Instead, I chose to collect evidence, to keep the truth with me for when the time would come. One night, as she was getting ready to go out again, I finally tried to talk. I told her she was destroying our family, that our daughter deserved better. She looked me in the eyes, cold and detached, and said words that carved themselves into my heart forever. I can't live in this fake marriage anymore. I want freedom. You live your life, I'll live mine. That was it. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of sacrifice, of love, of patience gone in one sentence. That night, she packed some of her things and left. She didn't look back. When our daughter asked me, "Papa, why did Mama leave?" I had no answer. That innocent face, looking for reassurance, broke me even more. My wife's betrayal hadn't just destroyed MIT, had stolen my daughter's childhood too. The weeks that followed were hell. I couldn't focus at work. I couldn't eat. I couldn't breathe without feeling her betrayal pressing down on my chest. Every corner of the house reminded me of her. Every laugh of my daughter reminded me of the family we had lost. One night, unable to bear it anymore, I tried to end my life. I swallowed poison, believing death was the only escape from the torment. But fate had other plans. I was rushed to the hospital, and I survived. As I lay on that hospital bed, the doctor told me, "You touched death, but you're still alive. Maybe life still has a purpose for you." His words echoed in my head. I realized that in my selfish pain, I had almost left my daughter an orphan. I had almost abandoned the only person who still needed me. That night, I made a decision. I would live not for myself, but for her. I would rise again, no matter how broken I was, because my daughter deserved a father who fought, not one who gave up. The opportunity came when I received a job offer abroad. It was a big decision, leaving behind my city, my home, and every piece of my past. But maybe that was exactly what I needed. A clean slate, far from the shadows of betrayal. On the plain, I looked out at the shrinking lights of my hometown. My heart ached with loss, burned with anger. But somewhere in the middle of all that pain was a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could build a new life from the ashes of the old one. That chapter of my life had ended. Ahead of me was a new journey, one where my true revenge, not through violence but through success, was waiting to be written. The day I stepped off that plane, I felt like a ghost walking among the living. I had left everything behind: my home, my friends, the woman I had once sworn to love until death. All I carried with me was a small suitcase, a few photos of my daughter, and the shattered pieces of the man I used to be. My mother and siblings were waiting for me at the airport. When they saw me, they didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. My hollow eyes told them everything. My mother held me tight, her arms trembling, and whispered, "You're home now, son. You're safe." It was the first time in months that I felt something close to peace. Within 2 weeks, I found a job at an open-cut mine. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. The pay was good, better than anything I'd had before. 2 weeks on, 1 week off. Grueling. Hours, dust in my lungs, sweat on my skin. But in that harsh world, I began to rebuild myself. Every morning before sunrise, I would stare out at the horizon, the red earth glowing beneath the rising sun, and whisper to myself, "You survived." Each day, I pushed a little harder, climbed a little higher, and earned the respect of the roughest men I'd ever met. No one there cared about my past. They cared about effort, about resilience. For the first time in years, I wasn't a husband or a failure. For a betrayed man, I was just me. But even as I rebuilt my body, my heart remained a battlefield. I thought of my daughter every night. If I remembered her tiny hands, her laugh, her first steps, I would call her twice a week, just to hear her voice. For those few minutes, I was whole again. 6 months passed before I got a call from my old army buddy, Tony. He sounded hesitant. "Mate, I've got to tell you something. You're still sending money to your wife, right?" "Yes," I said. $2,000 every month." For Kaylee. There was silence on the other end. My stomach turned cold. "Tony, what is it?" He sighed. "She's been seeing another man for over 6 months before she left you. She told Emma everything." For a long time, I said nothing. My mouth was dry, my mind empty. I thought I had already felt every kind of pain a human could feel. I was wrong. The betrayal didn't just reopen the wound, dug deeper, straight into my soul. I hung up, shaking, then called my wife. When she answered, I demanded the truth. For an hour, she lied, deflected, accused me of paranoia. But when I told her I knew everything, her voice changed. It became cold, sharp, venomous. "Yes," she hissed, "I cheated. You weren't enough. You never were." And just like that, the last fragile thread holding me together snapped. But this time, instead of breaking down, I felt something different. It wasn't despair. It was clarity. Cold, unshakable clarity. She had taken my trust, my peace, my years. But I would not let her take my future. I stopped sending money. I told her she could keep her lies, her new man, her fake happiness. I would build my life from the ground up. And one day, she would regret every cruel word she'd ever said. I focused on my work. Within a year, I became one of the most trusted explosives supervisors on site. My salary crossed $200,000. The same man who once begged for love was now commanding respect, power, and freedom. I bought a new truck, a small house near the coast, and started investing. For the first time in decades, I woke up without a pit in my stomach. But life wasn't done testing me yet. Out of nowhere, she cut off all contact between me and Kaylee. No calls, no messages, nothing. Just silence. I called. Lawyers spent thousands trying to get visitation rights. 10 months and $40,000 later, I finally won. The court ruled in my favor. I had the right to see my daughter for over a year. I spoke to her twice a week. She would tell me about school, her favorite shows, her little dreams. She always asked when I'd come home. Those calls were the only light in my world. But when my ex-wife found out that I wasn't working in the mines anymore, that I wasn't making the same money, she cut me off again. Just like that. No explanation. No goodbye. It's been 10 years since then. My daughter is 15 now. I haven't seen her since she was 5. Every birthday, I send a message she never receives. Every Christmas, I look at her photo and wonder if she still remembers me. And yet, despite it all, I survived. I used to think revenge meant destruction, tearing down the person who hurt you. But real revenge, real justice, is rebuilding yourself in spite of them. It's succeeding in a life they thought you'd never have. Over the years, I built my own company. I started small consulting for security systems, then expanded into logistics, then safety management. My company grew faster than I ever imagined. Within 5 years, I had offices in 3 cities and more employees than I could count. Every newspaper article, every interview, every success story had my name on it. I wasn't just surviving. And then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, karma came knocking. I was sitting in my office when my secretary said a woman was here to see me. When she walked in, I didn't recognize her at first. The years had not been kind to her. The confident, manipulative woman who had once destroyed me was gone. In her place stood someone older, tired, and broken. She smiled awkwardly. "You look back good," she said softly. I didn't respond. I just stared, waiting. She hesitated before speaking again. "I'm sorry for everything. Was stupid. Lost everything. The man I left you for. He's gone. He cheated on me, used me, and left me with nothing. I just wanted to see you." For a long time, I said nothing. Once upon a time, I had dreamed of this moment, her on her knees, begging for forgiveness, feeling the pain she had once given me. But now that it was here, I didn't feel triumph. I felt nothing. "You didn't just hurt me," I said quietly. "You destroyed a family. You took my daughter away. You broke something that can never be fixed." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know," she whispered. "I live with that every day." I nodded slowly, stood up, and walked to the window. Outside, the city buzzed with life. The world kept moving, indifferent to our little tragedies. I turned back to her. "I forgive you," I said finally. Her eyes widened. "But forgiveness isn't for you. It's for me. Because I refuse to let your choices poison what's left of my life," she cried silently. I walked her to the door, opened it, and said the last words I would ever speak to her. "I hope you find peace." "I already have." She left without looking back. That night, I drove to the ocean. The sky was streaked with orange and gold, the waves crashing gently against the rocks. I sat there, watching the sunset, thinking about everything I had lost, everything I had gained. I wasn't the same man anymore. The naive husband who once begged for love was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, wiser, unbreakable. I took out my phone, opened the last photo I had of Kaylee, little girl, with bright eyes and a smile that could melt the coldest heart, and whispered, "I'm still here, baby. Your dad never gave up." The wind carried my words away, but I knew somehow she would feel them. And as the last light of the sun dipped below the horizon, I realized something profound. Sometimes, revenge isn't about making others suffer. It's about healing yourself so completely that nothing they do can ever hurt you again. And in that quiet moment, with the sound of the sea and the memory of my daughter in my heart, I finally